My name is Walter Harrison. I spent 35 years teaching Japanese literature at Stanford, and the man my daughter brought home to marry, he had no idea who he was trying to deceive. This is the story of how I saved my little girl from the man she loved. If you've ever watched someone you love walk toward danger they couldn't see, stay with me. Because what happens next, it changes everything.
Candles flickered on my grandmother's mahogany table, casting warm shadows across the bone china I'd inherited from my mother. I'd spent 3 hours preparing, driving across town to that little sushi place in Japantown, the one I'd been visiting since my teaching days at Stanford back in the 90s. $200 worth of the freshest fish in San Francisco, arranged just so. All for my daughter's happiness. Emma had called me 3 days earlier, her voice carrying something I hadn't heard in years. Hope. "Dad, I'm bringing someone special home. I think you're gonna love him." She was 31. After her last relationship shattered her heart 2 years ago, I'd watched my little girl retreat into herself, hiding behind spreadsheets and conference calls. So when I heard that lightness return to her voice, I ordered extra yellowtail. His name was Takeshi Nakamura. He arrived in a perfectly tailored navy blazer, carrying a bottle of sake that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. He presented it with both hands, bowing slightly, thanking me for the invitation with exactly the right blend of warmth and respect. Emma practically glowed beside him, her fingers wrapped around his arm like she'd finally found solid ground after years of treading water. "Mr. Harrison," Takeshi said, setting down his chopsticks. I noticed immediately. He held them awkwardly, like someone who'd learned from a YouTube tutorial rather than a lifetime of family dinners. "Emma tells me you were a professor at Stanford for over 30 years. Japanese literature, wasn't it? That must have been remarkable work." It had its moments. I poured sake into his cup, watching carefully. Would he know to return the gesture? He did, but the angle was wrong. Amateur. "Your English is excellent. How long have you been stateside?" "About 7 years now." His smile widened. San Francisco felt like home immediately. The energy, the opportunities in finance. I work as a senior analyst at Pacific Trust Partners downtown. Portfolio management, investment strategies for high net worth clients. Emma beamed. "He's being modest. He manages accounts worth millions."
"The financial sector here is competitive," Takeshi continued, "but I've built something stable. I believe in security, planning for the future." He paused, his eyes drifting around my dining room. "Family legacy matters." Family legacy. The phrase landed wrong, not building a legacy, just legacy, as if it were something to be acquired, something already existing, waiting to be claimed. I watched him glance at my father's hand-built walnut bookshelf, the vintage Californian landscape painting above the sideboard. When he complimented the house's great bones and investment potential, my jaw tightened. Not, "It feels like a home." Not, "You can sense the history here." Investment potential. I deliberately fumbled with my chopsticks, letting a piece of tuna roll clumsily onto my plate. Pure theater. I'd spent 2 years living in Kyoto's Higashiyama ward during my research fellowship. I could use chopsticks before I could write my name in hiragana. But I wanted him comfortable. Wanted him to think he'd fooled the old professor. His grateful smile told me everything. He thought I was buying his performance. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that I'd spent 35 years teaching undergraduates how to spot deception in texts, how to trace lies through layers of meaning, how to recognize when someone was fabricating citations, hoping the professor wouldn't check. This felt exactly like that. And 15 minutes later, when he stepped onto my terrace to take a phone call, leaving the sliding door cracked just enough for sound to carry, I heard every word. In Japanese. The language he thought I couldn't understand. If you've ever looked into someone's eyes and sensed something was wrong, something you couldn't quite name, you know this feeling, that cold certainty settling into your stomach. Don't scroll past this. Subscribe now, because what happens next? It changed everything.
Takeshi paced the narrow width of my terrace, phone pressed to his ear, his back to the door. Through that 2-inch gap, his voice carried clearly into my dining room. But it wasn't English anymore. It was Japanese, fluid, casual, completely different from the carefully modulated politeness he'd been performing all night. And his laugh. God, that laugh. It had edges, sharp ones. "Keisuke, just a bit longer," he said in Japanese, his tone dripping with irritation. "The old fool doesn't suspect anything. Spent $200 on sushi trying to impress me." I stopped breathing. Emma was still talking beside me, scrolling through wedding venue photos on her phone, completely oblivious. "I'm thinking September, maybe early fall when the weather's nice. What do you think, Dad? Would Takeshi's family come from Japan?" I made sounds of agreement, nodding at appropriate moments, while my mind recorded every syllable filtering through that door. "His house is worth at least $1.2 million, Richmond District, prime location. Plus whatever retirement savings he's got from 35 years of teaching, probably $500,000 more. I can tolerate his patronizing dinner parties." My vision narrowed. The candle flame in front of me seemed suddenly very far away. "Once we're married, the green card is locked in. California community property laws, I've researched it thoroughly. If we divorce after a year, I get half of everything she earns during the marriage. With her salary, that's $70,000 for pretending to love her." Emma touched my arm. "Dad, you okay? You look pale." "Just the sake. Strong stuff," I managed. But through that gap, Takeshi kept talking. "Better yet, if the old man dies while we're still married and she inherits, I'm legally entitled to a portion as community property. I've verified this with online legal forums." His voice dropped to something almost gleeful. "The more I think about it, the brilliant this plan becomes. Clear my gambling debts, return to Tokyo with money in my pocket. My father will finally respect me." Gambling debts. I filed that away. Takeshi said, laughing again, "She'll never see it coming. None of them will. By this time next year, I'll have permanent residency and enough money to start fresh. She can keep her broken heart and her empty bank account." The call ended. I heard him pocket his phone, take a breath, adjust his demeanor. When he stepped back inside, his smile was warm again. His hand immediately found Emma's. She leaned into him, trusting and happy, completely unaware of the predator beside her. I cut another piece of sashimi, kept my expression pleasant, and then, casually, I said in flawless Kyoto-accented Japanese, "The autumn leaves this year should be beautiful." Just seasonal small talk, innocuous. But I delivered it perfectly. The pitch patterns of someone who'd studied at Kyoto University, who lived in traditional neighborhoods, who'd spent decades parsing classical poetry in the original language. For one heartbeat, Takeshi's face went blank. Pure shock flickered through his eyes. Comprehension, then fear, then frantic calculation. His smile reconstructed itself, but it was too late. He knew. I knew. And he knew that I knew. "Yes," he answered in English, his voice slightly higher than before. "Autumn is lovely." The game had changed. Sometimes the people we love most are standing right next to danger, and they can't see it. Have you ever watched someone you love heading toward a cliff? That helpless feeling in your chest? Hit the like button if you understand that pain. Let me know I'm not alone.
I couldn't just tell her. She wouldn't believe me. So I did what any professor would do. I built an airtight case. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Takeshi had spoken. Naive American, old fool, California community property, gambling debts, 70,000 for pretending. Each phrase was a nail, precise, deliberate. By 4 in the morning, I gave up on rest entirely. I walked to my study, opened a new folder on my computer, and labeled it simply, Research, Property Law. Innocuous enough if Emma dropped by unexpectedly. Inside that folder, I began documenting everything with the same methodology I'd taught graduate students for 30 decades. Dates, direct quotes in Japanese followed by English translations, sources, cross-references. I treated it like academic analysis, because that's exactly what it was. Evidence gathering for a conclusion I needed to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Over the next several days, I started with what anyone could find publicly. LinkedIn showed Takeshi worked at Sterling Financial Partners, a mid-tier firm, not the prestigious operation he'd implied. 3 years there, no advanced degrees, maybe a dozen professional connections. I cross-referenced salary data. Senior analysts in San Francisco typically earned $85,000 to $95,000. Comfortable, but nowhere near what he'd suggested. Emma had mentioned her salary once, proud to reaching 6 figures at 31, $142,000. The math shifted in my mind. He wasn't bringing stability to her life. She was the prize he'd targeted. I researched H-1B visas nest using my retired faculty access to academic databases. H-1B required employer sponsorship, valid 6 years maximum. Extensions possible if green card application was pending. Marriage to a U.S. citizen? Fastest path to permanent residency. File for adjustment of status immediately after the wedding. Green card typically approved within a year. The timeline made brutal sense. September wedding gave Takeshi 2 months cushion before his November visa expiration. Enough time to file paperwork, establish legal marriage, secure his status before his work authorization collapsed. On the 4th day, I drove to Japantown. Hiroshi Yamada had owned Kuda Sushi since I was still teaching at Stanford. We'd had countless conversations over the years about Japanese literature, cultural preservation, the changing neighborhood. "Walter-san," he greeted me, wiping down the counter. "Your usual?"
Actually, Hiroshi, I wanted to ask you something. I kept my tone light, conversational. My daughter Emma is engaged to a young man from Japan, Takeshi Nakamura, works in finance downtown. You know how small this community can be. Thought you might have crossed paths. Hiroshi's expression shifted. Something careful entered his eyes. Nakamura. He glanced toward the back of the restaurant. Yes, I've seen someone by that name. Late evenings sometimes. The pause stretched. Walter, you've been coming here 20 years. Some establishments in Japantown, they're not what they appear. I've seen men lose more than money there. Gambling, late-night establishments, men losing more than money. Another piece of the pattern. If you ever hear anything concerning about his background, financial issues, visa problems, would you let me know? Hiroshi nodded slowly. Your daughter deserves better than heartbreak. I thanked him, took my order, drove home with my mind connecting dots. Kisuke's debts weren't metaphorical. They were real, growing, desperate. And Emma was his way out. When you love someone, you do anything to protect them, even become someone you never thought you'd be. A detective, an investigator, a father who refuses to let his daughter be destroyed. If you understand that kind of love, subscribe now. This story is just getting started.
I needed proof she couldn't dismiss, so I hired someone who knew how to find truth buried beneath lies. Marcus Webb's office occupied a modest space in the Soma district, filing cabinets lining the walls, Venetian blinds filtering afternoon light. He looked exactly like a retired detective should, mid-50s, gray hair cropped short, eyes that assessed everything without seeming to look at anything. I'd found him through online reviews, former SFPD, 20 years of private investigation work, 5 stars across the board for being discreet and thorough. His flat rate was $3,500 for a standard background investigation, 2 weeks of work. Emma's future was worth infinitely more than $3,500. Most background checks on fiancés come back clean, Marcus said, scanning the notes I'd brought. Maybe some minor issues, but you're worried about something specific. He's marrying her 2 months before his work visa expires. The timing is too convenient. Marcus nodded slowly. Immigration fraud is federal. If that's what this is, you're looking at someone facing serious consequences. I need to know what we're dealing with. Can you find out? That's exactly what I do. I wrote a check for the deposit. He warned me that sometimes clients don't like what investigators uncover. I'd rather know an ugly truth than believe a beautiful lie, I told him. While Marcus worked, I continued my own research. At the San Francisco Public Library, I accessed PACER, the federal court database, and California civil court records, searched Takeshi Nakamura plus San Francisco plus civil cases. 2 small claims judgments appeared. $4,200 to a credit card company, June 2023. $3,800 to a personal loan company, September 2023. Both unpaid. I photographed everything with my phone and added it to my evidence folder. The dates mattered. These judgments predated Emma. Takeshi's financial crisis existed before he ever targeted my daughter. A week later, Marcus called. "I've got preliminary findings. Can you come by?" His office felt different this time, heavier. He spread surveillance photos across his desk. Takeshi entering an unmarked building in Oakland, 3 different nights, over 2 weeks. Timestamps showing 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. This building, Marcus said, is known to law enforcement. Illegal gambling establishment, high-stakes poker, mostly Asian clientele, cash-only operations. Your guy goes there 2, sometimes 3 nights a week. He laid out more documentation. Credit card balances totaling $38,000, personal loans at $24,000.
And my source in that community says he owes money to the poker operators themselves, about $12,000, maybe more. Marcus paused. These aren't people you want to owe money to, Mr. Harrison. How desperate is he? Desperate enough to make very bad decisions, like marrying someone for immigration status and hoping her father's money solves his debt problem. Marcus pulled out printed pages next. Found these on an immigration forum. User Tokyo Finance Guy posted 6 months ago. I read the thread. Need advice. H-1B expires in 1 year. Employer won't sponsor green card. Dating American citizen. How fast can marriage lead to permanent status? What's minimum marriage duration before divorce doesn't look suspicious? The responses discussed timelines, community property laws, inheritance considerations. Takeshi's reply. Got it. Marriage plus patience equals permanent status plus financial stability. The calculation was explicit, written down, traceable. I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of it all. This isn't circumstantial anymore, Marcus said. This is prosecutable. I thanked him, paid his final invoice, took copies of everything. But I knew showing Emma this folder would backfire. She'd accuse me of sabotage, of hiring investigators to destroy her happiness, of being a controlling father who couldn't let her grow up. She was in love, and love makes people defend the undefensible. I needed another approach. Patience. Strategy. Let Takeshi make mistakes while I documented everything. The perfect moment would come. Have you ever held a truth so heavy you couldn't speak it, knowing that the wrong word at the wrong time would push away the person you're trying to save? That's the loneliest feeling in the world. If you've been there, hit like. Let's carry this weight together.
He thought he was safe. He thought I was just a harmless old professor. He had no idea I was listening to every word. The barbecue was at Linda Martinez's house in Oakland, one of Emma's colleagues from work. "Dad, everyone wants to meet you," Emma had insisted, "and Takeshi will be there. You two can bond properly this time." Bond, right. I arrived with a bottle of wine and my most pleasant expression. The backyard was crowded with Emma's coworkers, music playing from outdoor speakers, the smell of grilling burgers filling the warm summer air. Takeshi stood near the grill, arm around Emma's waist, laughing at someone's joke. He saw me, raised his beer in greeting, the picture of the devoted fiancé.
I made small talk, helped arrange food on tables, watched Takeshi work the room with practiced charm, mentioning his finance career to multiple people, dropping hints about the September wedding. Mid-afternoon, his phone rang. I was near the kitchen doorway carrying a bowl of potato salad when I saw him check the screen. His expression flickered, something sharp, urgent, before he smiled at Emma and gestured toward the garden. "Work call. Be right back." The garden was 20 feet away, separated by a rose trellis, but open enough that sound carried perfectly. I set down the potato salad slowly, arranged utensils that didn't need arranging, and listened. Japanese again. Clear. Unguarded. "Keisuke, listen, just a bit longer." Takeshi's voice held amusement. Contempt. "This naive American actually thinks I love her. The intimacy is tolerable, but the rest? Exhausting. All her feelings, her constant need for reassurance." I kept my hand steady, my expression neutral. "The father, old fool sitting on a fortune. His Richmond district house is worth at least $1 million. I checked the property records myself. Retirement savings? Probably $500,000 more from all those years teaching." My jaw tightened. Better yet, his voice dropped to something almost gleeful. "If the old man dies while we're still married and Emma inherits, I'm legally entitled to a portion of that inheritance as community property. I've verified this with legal resources online. The more I calculate, the more brilliant this plan becomes." I forced myself to breathe.
Clear my gambling debts. What are we at now? 78,000? And return to Tokyo with money in my pocket. My father will finally respect me for accomplishing something. Laughter, easy and triumphant. She'll never see it coming. None of them will. The call ended. I heard him pocket his phone, adjust his clothing, take a centering breath before walking back toward the party. When he stepped onto the patio, his smile was warm again. His hand found Emma's immediately. She leaned into him, trusting, happy, completely unaware. I carried the potato salad to the table, made a joke about portion sizes, smiled at people who spoke to me. Inside, I was cataloging every word. Naive American, old fool, 1 year, then divorce, community property calculations, inheritance angles, gambling debts at 78,000. The phrases were seared into memory with perfect clarity. As the afternoon wound down, I hugged Emma goodbye, shook Takeshi's hand, his grip confident, unconcerned, then said casually, "Emma, remind me when you're meeting with my estate attorney. We should update those family documents." Emma looked puzzled.
What documents? You didn't mention anything. Estate planning matters. Nothing urgent, just routine maintenance. Takeshi's smile froze for half a second. His eyes sharpened. Estate planning. Is everything all right, Mr. Harrison? I met his gaze steadily. Everything's fine, just being prudent. You understand the importance of legal preparation, I'm sure, given your work in finance. Something passed between us. Recognition, calculation, wariness. Then his charm snapped back into place. Of course, very wise. I drove home through Oakland traffic, mind racing. Not just disrespect now, premeditated fraud with specific legal strategy. He'd researched marriage laws, calculated inheritance scenarios, planned divorce timing down to the year. My daughter wasn't his love. She was paperwork and a bank account. The cruelest lies aren't the ones strangers tell us. They're the ones whispered by people who hold our hands and promise forever. If this moment broke something inside you, you're not alone. Subscribe, because the reckoning is coming.
I couldn't attack him directly. She'd defend him, so I set a trap and waited to see if he'd walk into it himself. Richard Fletcher's office occupied the 15th floor of a financial district high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Market Street. He was 58, silver hair precisely trimmed, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Former prosecutor turned family law specialist with 30 years of protecting clients' assets. I arrived with my evidence folder, 3 inches thick now. "Mr. Harrison," Fletcher said, gesturing to leather chairs, "you mentioned potential fraud concerns regarding your daughter's engagement." I opened the folder. "My daughter, Emma, is marrying Takeshi Nakamura in September. I believe he's using her for immigration status and financial gain." I laid out everything. Relationship timeline, both overheard Japanese conversations with my translations, Marcus Webb's investigator report, court records showing unpaid judgments, surveillance photos of illegal gambling visits, forum posts discussing marriage for green card strategies. Fletcher read without interruption, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When he finished, "Mr. Harrison, in 30 years of family law practice, I've seen calculated exploitation. This is one of the most methodical I've encountered. He's researched community property laws, planned timelines, targeted your daughter specifically for her income and your assets. Can we protect her legally? We can. A properly drafted prenuptial agreement would neutralize his entire strategy. But," Fletcher paused, "she has to agree to it, and he has to sign it. That's the complication." He explained California's community property system with precision. Without a prenup, anything Emma earned during the marriage belonged equally to both spouses. Her $142,000 salary meant Takeshi could claim roughly $71,000 after 1 year, plus half of any appreciation in her condo, potentially another $30,000 in this market. If I died during their marriage and Emma inherited my estate, Takeshi would have legal claim to a portion as community property. So his plan is legally viable? Completely. That's what makes this dangerous. Fletcher proposed a 2-pronged strategy. First, draft the most comprehensive prenuptial agreement possible. Protect all of Emma's premarital assets, future income, and any inheritance. Include provisions stating that if the marriage ended within 3 years, Takeshi received nothing. No assets, no support, no claims whatsoever. Second, plant seeds of doubt through Emma's trusted friends. Prepare her to consider legal protection without direct paternal pressure that would trigger defensive loyalty. The prenuptial itself will be a test. If he refuses to sign, his intentions become obvious. His fees were $450 per hour, estimated total $8,500. I wrote a check for $5,000 as a retainer without hesitation. Draft the strongest protection possible. My daughter's future is worth any cost. 2 weeks later, Fletcher's preliminary draft arrived, 20 pages of legal fortress. I invited Emma and Takeshi for dinner. There's something important we need to discuss before the wedding. They arrived at 6. Emma looked hopeful. Perhaps this was reconciliation. Takeshi's eyes kept darting to the leather folder on my dining table. Smart man, he sensed something. We ate, small talk, weather, work, wedding logistics. When dishes were cleared, I opened the folder. Emma, Takeshi, before any marriage involving significant assets, it's standard practice to have legal protection in place. I turned the document so Emma could see it. I've had a prenuptial agreement prepared. Emma's face went through confusion, shock, hurt. Dad, a prenup?
This protects your assets, sweetheart. Your condo, your savings, your future income, any inheritance from me. These remain yours regardless of what happens. Takeshi's mask cracked. His jaw tightened. Mr. Harrison, this feels extreme. Emma and I love each other. We're building a life together. Prenuptial agreements are for people who don't trust each other. They're for people who are prudent. I kept my voice even, professorial. Emma's income exceeds $142,000 annually. She owns property. Without protection, California community property law means anyone she marries has claim to half of everything earned during the marriage. That's not about trust. It's legal reality. Takeshi stood. This is insulting. You're implying I'm marrying Emma for money. I remained seated. I'm treating this like what it legally is, a contract with significant financial implications. I paused deliberately. But since you mentioned it, your H-1B visa expires in November, doesn't it? 4 months after your planned September wedding. His face went pale. What does that have to do with anything? Just noting that the timing is convenient. Marriage to a U.S. citizen allows adjustment of immigration status. Emma looked between us, wounded. Dad, are you suggesting... I spoke gently. I'm suggesting that before any major commitment, we ensure everyone's intentions are clear and everyone's protected. Then, in flawless Japanese, a wise man plans for all possibilities. Takeshi's face went blank. The reminder that I understood Japanese, that I wasn't the ignorant fool from his phone conversations, hit him like ice water. Read it carefully, I said, sliding the document across the table. Have Takeshi's own attorney review it, but understand, this isn't optional. If you marry without this protection, I cannot support the wedding financially or emotionally. The evening ended badly. Emma left in tears. Takeshi shot me a look of pure hatred as they walked out. But they took the folder with them. That was something. Sometimes protecting the people we love means becoming the villain in their story. For a while. Until the truth emerges. If you've ever made a hard choice to save someone who didn't understand yet, like this video. The hardest part is still coming.
She found his phone. She read his messages. And finally, she saw him clearly. 3 days of silence. The longest Emma and I had gone without speaking since she left for college. I checked my phone constantly, fighting the urge to call. Fletcher's voice echoed in my mind. Patience. Day 4, she called. Voice strained, distant. Dad, we've discussed the prenup. Takeshi won't sign it. I waited. He says it's discriminatory, that you're treating him this way because he's Japanese, because he's an immigrant. He feels insulted and disrespected. I heard Takeshi's words coming through Emma's mouth, his talking points, his framing. And what do you think? I think you're insulting him, like you don't trust my judgment. I trust your judgment about character. I don't trust that everyone shows their true character up front. The prenup isn't about Takeshi personally. It's about protecting you legally. But he says you wouldn't require this from an American fiancé. Emma, would you sign a prenup if you were marrying someone with significantly more assets than you to protect both parties? She hesitated. I guess that would make sense. Then why doesn't it make sense when you're the one with assets to protect? She had no answer. That night, Marcus Webb called with surveillance update. Takeshi's gambling had escalated dramatically. 5 visits to the Oakland Poker Club in 10 days, up from his usual 2 or 3. Longer sessions, larger bets, visible agitation. Whatever pressure he's under, it's making him reckless. He's trying to gamble his way out, only digging deeper. His debt had climbed to $82,000. 10 days later, my doorbell rang at 11:40 p.m. Through the peephole, Emma. Face ravaged by tears. But her expression wasn't collapse. It was fury. I opened the door. She held a phone in her hand. Not hers. Takeshi's. Dad, I need to see everything. Everything you know about him. No preamble, no defense of Takeshi.
She'd arrived at the truth on her own terms. I brought her inside, made tea while she sat at the kitchen table, staring at that phone screen. He left it when he rushed out earlier, she finally said, voice flat. My phone died. I needed to check work email. I used his. She swallowed hard. A message came in, Japanese, from someone named Keisuke. I used Google Translate. She turned the phone toward me. The message read, "Keep playing nice with the stupid American woman. Just a few more weeks until the wedding." I scrolled up, Emma continued. Found months of conversations. He called me gullible, naive, discussed green card timelines, mentioned waiting for you to die so he could claim inheritance through me. I sat down across from her. I know. I heard him. That first dinner, on the terrace. I speak Japanese. Her eyes met mine. Something shattered in them, but also something clarified. Show me everything. I want to know exactly who I almost married. I went to my study and returned with the evidence folder. Laid it out systematically. Surveillance photos, debt documentation showing $82,000 owed, court records, Jennifer Park's statement about a previous $5,000 loan fraud with identical tactics, visa expiration data, forum posts, transcripts of both overheard conversations. Emma read every page, asked questions about dates and sources, cross-referenced Takeshi's lies with documented facts. By 3 a.m., she was exhausted but clear-eyed. He was going to marry me, wait exactly 1 year so it wouldn't look suspicious, then divorce me and take half of everything under community property law, plus whatever I inherited from you if... She couldn't finish. If I died during that year, I said gently. Yes, that was his plan. Her tears were fury now. Tomorrow we confront him. I want him to see that I know. The moment truth finally breaks through is the most painful and the most liberating feeling in the world. If you've ever experienced that, the scales falling from your eyes, seeing someone clearly for the first time, don't leave without subscribing. The ending of this story, you need to see it.
He thought he was the smartest person in the room. He was wrong. The next morning, Emma texted Takeshi, "Come to my dad's house at 10 a.m. We need to talk about the wedding." He arrived, cautiously hopeful, probably thinking Emma had convinced me to back down on the prenup. He walked into my dining room and found Emma, me, and Richard Fletcher sitting with the evidence folder open between us. His face went from hopeful to wary to trapped in 3 seconds. Emma spoke first. "I found your phone last night. I read your messages with Keisuke. I know what you called me. I know what you planned." She produced translated screenshots. "Stupid American woman. Marry her, wait a year, divorce, get half under community property law. Clear my debts and return to Tokyo." Takeshi tried to laugh. "Emma, that's just guys talking, joking around. You don't understand the context." Google Translate was very clear. That's not joking. That's fraud. He pivoted to explanations. Mistranslation, misunderstanding, taken out of context. But as Emma produced piece after piece, the gambling debts, the court judgments, Jennifer Park's testimony, the visa timeline, his defenses crumbled. He turned on me. "You spied on me. You hired investigators. This is entrapment." Fletcher spoke for the first time. "Mr. Nakamura, everything here was obtained legally. Public records, lawful surveillance, voluntary witness statements." He paused. "However, what you've done, researching marriage fraud, planning to exploit community property laws, using marriage specifically for immigration benefit, constitutes marriage fraud under federal law." Another pause. Immigration fraud carries penalties including permanent visa denial, criminal charges, and deportation. Takeshi's face went white. His final outburst was rage, switching between Japanese and English, shouting accusations of racism, threats of defamation lawsuits. But his fury only confirmed his guilt. I responded in Japanese. "Takeshi-san, I gave you every chance to be honest. You chose deception." Then English. "This conversation is over. Please leave." His desperate final plea to Emma, "Please, I can explain everything." "Get out," she said. "Don't contact me again. The engagement is over." After Takeshi stormed out, we sat in silence. Emma was trembling. Rage, relief, grief, all mixed together. With Emma's authorization, Fletcher drafted an anonymous report to Takeshi's employer. Documentation of significant gambling debts, involvement with illegal establishments, financial instability violating company ethics policies. 2 weeks later, Takeshi was terminated from Sterling Financial Partners. His H-1B visa sponsorship was withdrawn immediately. Under immigration law, he had 60 days to find a new sponsor or leave the country. With his record, no company would touch him. Late August, Takeshi left for Japan. Couldn't afford to stay, couldn't find new sponsorship. Debts still pressing. No dramatic final confrontation, just absence. The man who tried to con us was gone. September arrived. Life settled into a healthier rhythm. Emma joined a support group for people who'd experienced manipulative relationships. She was learning to recognize red flags, processing what happened, rebuilding trust in her own judgment. We had weekly dinners, more open with each other than before. One warm afternoon, Emma helped me plant autumn chrysanthemums in my garden. "You know what's strange?" she said, pressing soil around a flower. "I feel like I learned more in 4 months than in 4 years of college." "About what?" "About judgment. About taking time to really know people. About listening to the people who love me when they have concerns." She paused. "About my dad being smarter than I gave him credit for." I smiled. "I had an unfair advantage. I speak Japanese." "You had experience. You'd lived longer, seen patterns." She straightened, brushing dirt from her knees. "Will you do something for me? When I start dating seriously again, will you meet them? And if you see red flags, will you tell me?" "Always. That's my job." She leaned against my shoulder. "I'm lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have you too, sweetheart. That's why I couldn't let anyone hurt you." The garden glowed in afternoon light. Autumn flowers ready to bloom. My daughter beside me, wiser now, stronger. The crisis had passed. What remained was understanding. Experience matters. Wisdom has value. And protecting those you love is never wrong, even when they can't see the danger yet. I looked at Emma, really looked. She caught my gaze. "What?" "Nothing. Just glad you're here." She smiled, understanding without words. We returned to planting. Life continued. Justice served. Family protected. This story doesn't end with dramatic fireworks. It ends with quiet peace, which is the most satisfying ending of all. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of someone you love or someone who loves you enough to fight for you even when you can't see clearly, please subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the greatest act of love isn't saying, "I told you so." It's being patient enough to let the truth reveal itself. And being there, always being there, when it finally does. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment telling me what resonated most. And remember, the people who truly love you, they're paying attention, even when you don't realize it. Especially then.